Before we get started, Councillor Skelton Morven would like to welcome people to the territory.
Thank you, Mayor Brain. Just before we start, so for me, not a traditional welcome, but just to acknowledge that we're holding this gathering on the traditional territory of the 9 allied tribes of Lac Alams and Metlakatla, the Coast Sipshan people, and I thank everyone out for coming out today, and to thank the people for allowing us to hold this gathering. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Brain.
Thank you. I'd like to call tonight's regular meeting of council to order. Recommendation that the regular meeting be suspended and the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Ady, second by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, I'd like to call tonight's committee of the whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting of January 28, 2019 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Before we get started, I will read a statement of the chair. So for those of you present this evening and for those watching via television, let me please explain that a committee of the whole meeting is a committee that consists of all members of council. This meeting allows council members to deal with issues in greater detail, but is less formal than a regular council meeting. During this meeting, issues are not formally adopted, but recommendations may be made at the next regular council meeting. At that time, the recommendations of the previous committee of the whole will be adopted and acted upon. Some key points to remember when making your presentations are: remember, council meetings are televised, and it is very important to introduce yourself and, if applicable, your name of the organization that you are representing, and speak directly into the microphone. When presenting, please address any comments or concerns to the chair of the meeting. Keep your presentation brief. 5 minutes would be ideal, as council has several presentations. Once you have completed your presentation, please ensure you summarize any requests or concerns. The chair will then ask council members if they have any questions. Remember, there will be no decisions made at this meeting on any requests or concerns you have made. Lastly, requests will be referred to staff for a review, report, and recommendation to council. Council meetings are full, so we would appreciate your consideration of time allotment. And that being said, we have our first presenter tonight, Mr. Tom Kurtz, from the Community for Clean Water, regarding a clean water preparedness plan. Welcome. I believe that button there, yeah.
Okay, and it's actually pronounced Curtis.
Curtis?
Yes, and my friends call me Curtis instead of Tom, so
Curtis
consider
it
you
is.
all friends. Curtis it is.
Okay.
So thank you, Mayor Brain. Like you said, my name is Tom Curtis, and I am a volunteer organizer with Community for Clean Water. And so what I'd like to do today is first just acknowledge that I'm not the right person to be speaking today, and explain what I mean by that. And then just raise a couple of concerns, and then go over a proposal for how I think the city can move forward. So I'm not the right person to make this presentation tonight, and that's because the right person would be someone who has been left without access to drinking water due to the city's lack of preparedness during the 46 days of either a water quality advisory or a boil water notice. So I'm under 65, I'm not an infant or toddler, and my immune system is not compromised. So that means that I'm no longer advised to boil tap water before drinking it. And even when there was a boil water notice, I had a sanitizing dishwasher at home to wash my dishes, the money to buy bottled water, and the time and means to boil water. So given all this, I'd like to apologize to all those who should be sitting here, people who needed clean water and didn't have the means. Just like to say thank you. Thank you to City Hall and to City Government. This actually has been, for me, a good introduction to City Hall and to City Government. Last meeting I left feeling disappointed, but in the 2 weeks since then, what I can say is, Councillor Niche, thank you for your recommendation that we move away from Facebook and just start off with a direct letter to councillors. And to the councillors who responded to that, those of you who've met with me face-to-face, to Councillor Skelton Morven, thank you so much for your very thoughtful reflection. I appreciate that. And to Mayor Brain, thank you for your invitation to meet with you in person. Because I think that's what we need to really think about, is how can we work together as a community? And I'm new here, and I'm learning a lot about the community. I came here because I thought it was a great place, and now I know it is a great place. But there's things that I think we could do better. And so what I want to do with my remarks today is just discuss three things. First, I'd like to explain how recognizing access to drinking water as a human right can help us address this issue. And then I'd like to address two concerns that I have, and then finally, I'd like to propose a solution. So in terms of human rights, Canada formally recognizes access to drinking water as a human right as a signatory country to the United Nations International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which includes General Comment 15, which states, quote, "The human right to water entitles everyone to sufficient, safe, acceptable, physically accessible, and affordable water for personal and domestic uses." So governments in Canada are already committed to respecting, protecting, and fulfilling the right to accessible drinking water for all people in Canada. And in an urban place like Prince Rupert, the job of fulfilling this human right has been delegated from other levels of government to the municipal level of government. And of course, if this were just a magic land and we had something that the people signed in the United Nations and it worked as a magic wand and we could just wave it and say, okay, call it a human right, it happens, well, the world would be a far different place and there wouldn't be hundreds of communities in Canada today that have gone for years without the clean water, right? So it's not as simple as just saying it's a human right, go and do it. And I think municipal government understands, I think you understand, that to do it requires that federal and provincial government facilitate that through regulation and also through capital grants. And the city is involved in doing that, which I think, to your credit, you're already in the process of that. And I think that's important to keep in mind. But what human rights say to us is what's really critical, not convenient, but critical. So drinking water is critical. And when it's not accessible, then people who can't access it, like their dignity and their entitlement to equal respect is being denied. And I don't think that you need me to come and lecture on that, because the city government, I'm sure, has been really focused on what could be done and the first part of this phase and now with the Water Quality Advisory. So what I like to say, instead of saying is we have this magic wand, which we don't have, or the obvious thing around the values around human rights, it's just a simple way to think of it. So imagine if in town there was a sewer pipe and it just broke and all of a sudden there was sewer in downtown. And so the city said, well, we're going to fix it. And everyone's like, yes, fix it. Great, that's your job. So then the city went out and dug a big trench in the middle of the city. And the trench was an inconvenience for people who had cars because they could just drive around it. But people who didn't have cars, they'd have to walk right along that trench. So people unexpectedly, without intent, fall into the trench, into this big sewer trench, right? Well, we would say, what's wrong with this? Not that the people with cars are somehow bad for having access to a car to get around it, or the people who fell in were somehow responsible for it, but something was missing. And what was missing are guardrails. And that's what I think was missing with the preparedness plan for the infrastructure project. Guardrails. And in my view, what guardrails would be for this is a way for those people who need clean water and can't access it, even when there's an advisory or a notice, to make sure there's measures for those people to get the water that they need. Guardrails. And then when we think about human rights, we're like, yeah, let's just put the guardrails in place. So that gets to the two concerns and then the proposal, which I'll go over very briefly. So first concern is, I think there need to be guardrails. So while the city's working on this infrastructure project, I think there needs to be a plan in place for if this happens again, which could happen based on the conditions that the city has pointed out in terms of a dry summer and then a storm surge, and then next thing you know, while the city's doing this important infrastructure project, we go back to the same situation. And then secondly, I think that more transparency and a better process for sharing information would be really helpful. And I imagine the city already has that in mind. So just to go over Clean Water Preparedness Plan, which I've submitted to the person who I asked if I could speak today. And so I don't know if you have copies of it. But if you don't, you can go to communityforcleanwater.ca. And anyone at home, I guess, I don't know where the camera is, but and you can find a copy of it there. So on the first page, there's this one goal that I think is important, which is I hope that the city will recognize drinking water as a human right of all Prince Rupert residents. And what I'm really hoping is that we'll recognize it as a right for everyone, and that this can draw attention to the fact that we have it good in Prince Rupert compared to other communities. And while we can keep it good, we can't lose sight of we're not the first, not the only, and not the worst when it comes to facing a crisis like this. And then moving from the goals, I'd just like to very briefly on page 2 just talk about what I think would be a good measure before, good measure during, and a good measure after. So at the bottom of page 2, in terms of before a boil water notice, or I guess now a water advisory, quality water advisory. So I think having these updated at least weekly, posted on the city website first before they're posted on social media sites of elected officials or other channels, and that it includes as much information as can be provided, knowing that not all the information can be provided, because some things would confuse people, might undermine the public health. So obviously that can't be provided. And then after a boil water notice, so we're kind of in that stage now, and we're also in before, and we're in during, right? We're in all 3 stages at once right now. I think it's important that the review be more than an internal review. I think it should be conducted by an outside independent expert on water quality and accessibility. I think that's important because one thing that person could provide is the trust that needs to be rebuilt when infrastructure like this doesn't work. To no fault of the city, just when your water doesn't come out clean, trust is eroded, and I think building that trust should be a priority. And then I also think it's really important that that person reach out to the community members who aren't in this seat, the people who should be here. And that takes a lot of work. I was a community organizer. It takes a lot of work to reach out to people who face those kinds of barriers. And so rely on expert and citizen input, base it on verifiable facts, make it as transparent as it can be, and then consult with all the stakeholders, business, institutional, healthcare, and vulnerable community members themselves, broad and extensive. So those are my comments. This is a proposal that I share with you in the hopes that it helps guide good public policy. And then, I'm really looking forward to meeting with you, Mayor Brain, meeting with other councillors. I think this is a really important issue, and I intend to continue working with the community so that we can support each other and do what we need, which is build great infrastructure, provide great services, and make sure that everyone in the community is included in what the city has to offer. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Okay. So now we have a general question period from the public. So any member of the public who wishes to come and speak before council on any topic of the... Yes? Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I think we'd be remiss in not thanking you for the effort and passion that was put into this. I think there's a ton of really good ideas in here. I think some of them are more doable than others in a practical sense. But I want to thank you for coming and doing that. And I know we also met earlier in the week, and I think those kinds of conversations are really, really productive. And so you've given us, a whole bunch of stuff to chew over. I do feel, from my perspective, that the city, the staff who would be responsible for kind of reflecting on how things went, will do that with great integrity and forthrightness. I have a great deal of faith that good things will come out of that process as well.
Thank you, Councillor Adie. And good points.
Thanks again, Curtis. I also met with Curtis earlier with Councillor Adie, and some of the things that Curtis has actually brought forth, the city is already recognizing, and I feel that the integrity of our staff is beyond reproach, and we've asked them to do an after-action report, and we will get that and take a look at it and go from there. But I really think that lessons have been learned from this, and the only way you learn a lesson is sometimes to make mistakes, unfortunately. I, last week, had a couple of meetings with people that were vulnerable groups and found out their concerns in that. I also found out there was groups that were helping them in town, CAP and other groups, Unemployment Action Society and that. So some of that was covered without us not even knowing. But I did meet with them already, and because I was interested after our conversation with you about that, so I reached out to them, and I will be talking to our manager about what I learned from those people also. And thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, so any members of the public that want to come forward? Absolutely, yep. Welcome, Ms. Starr.
Great to be here for 2019 of the park after Prince Rupert here on the North Coast, and we won first prize, and I think it was a lot of work involved getting it here. An old baseball diamond. It was a long time coming because I lived on Kootenai before and I saw it, and we need to make it safe for all of the park. But speed bumps, so they're like, those will happen further down the line as we speak. Won't happen immediately. It's a 3-year phase, is that correct?
Potentially longer than that, but
Yeah,
yes.
okay, we'll say 4 years, approximately, maybe. Well, we want to keep it under that.
depending on funding, though, I'll put it that
Yeah,
way.
and we did win $100,000 for the record, Your Worship, and thank you for speaking Lux Alums territory. I'm a Lux Alums member myself. I want to acknowledge my colleague to the left. Thank you for doing so.
No, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, so I just want to speak on other topics, if I may.
Sure.
The speeding I see, and I sit in Tim Hortons on the 6th Street here in Prince Rupert. This is at night. And I got a good view of 6th Street and 2nd Avenue. And because it's night, I can't see the plate numbers. They're speeding through solid red lights on 6th Street because it's a highway. It connects to BC Ferries and going to McBride out eastbound towards PG, Prince George. And there's been so many close calls. Families I see are just hightailing it through a red light, and they're running stop signs, not giving the right of way to pedestrians. And are we going to go municipal police like Surrey is, or are we going to stay?
I think we're going to stay RCMP.
Okay, no, because Surrey is
Although PRPD has a nice ring to it.
Can you rephrase that, please, Honorable Speaker?
I was just saying, I think PRPD has a good ring to it, though, but we'll probably stay with the RCMP.
Okay, Honorable Speaker, thank you for the record. And it's this, when a taxi makes a right-hand turn on 4th Street a week ago, I had a green light, and how am I supposed to cross? I couldn't. He was right in the middle of the crosswalk, and pedestrians do have the right of way. Is that correct, Your Worship?
That's correct.
Okay, for the record, you know, I understand we may, now with the all-native coming to Prince Rupert, we will be getting more police forces here in this town for the city of Prince Rupert during the all-native. I know it always, every year, they bring members from other detachments. I'm grateful for that, to make the community safe. My colleagues on both sides of this, I hope you agree with me. Any negative? No, okay. I just want to hear feedback if there were, because the temptation, you got to be aware of your surroundings. And when you're in a crosswalk or at a light, they don't care if you have. I have my safety coat hanging up on the hook there, and I got my City of Prince Rupert vest. And the drivers don't. Oh, it's you. We don't care about you. I'm not gonna argue with the car. I'm gonna let them go. I want to be in one piece. When I cross that street light or, a crosswalk, I don't want to be in a hospital bed on my deathbed. And I just seen so many close mishaps here in the city of Prince Rupert, Honorable Speaker, and I'm sorry to talk that way. It's just, Your Worship, it's just a formality I was brought up. And we need to put the nail to the grinding stone. And the McKay Street Park and Kootenai, there's still a lot of high visibility racing. I see high expensive cars here in town. They're racing like if there's nobody around, Your Worship. There was that guy in the States, he jumped on the front of the hood, and 70 mile per hour, lucky nobody was killed. I'm not sure if you've seen that. It was on the news down in the States. They were both charged today in court in U.S. County and road rage. This is what I mean by road rage. This was an older gentleman. Jumped on the hood of a white car, and because it was a side swipe, and they're both charged today in court, and they've been released on their own to appear in court at a later date.
Ms. Starr,
Yes?
is there any other comments about Prince Rupert that you want to make tonight?
Oh, I'm just making that does happen. The
I
road
understand
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
For the record, this will be all for the record, Your Worship. I just want to speak. And we are progressing on the McKay Street
And we
Park.
appreciate your ambassador work you're doing at the park, because it's
And-
been very helpful.
And you being there, supporting us and pouring cement like I was, I really enjoyed that.
It was a fun day. Absolutely.
Okay, Your Worship, I'm going to end it right here.
Thank you.
And I'm going to take my seat in the House.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm going to get a glass of water.
Absolutely.
BC Cannabis Stores to open a store in Prince Rupert. They're good union jobs. I'm a BC GEU member. Managers make 70 grand. Assistant managers can make up to 60, and just the attendants make like $23 an hour, and those are good family jobs, family supporting jobs, and I think that the city should consider writing a letter and inviting that to happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please. Welcome.
Welcome, Larry Golden here. I wanted an update for the Recycling Society, not the recycling, but what we're going to do with that. I'm hearing various stories that maybe the funding has been changed and stuff like that. And one thing, I was on the organization that started the Recycling Society, but we gave it up because we thought it needed a larger scope, so we gave it over to the regional district at the time. So, but I remember I was getting stories that that at one time, if something like this, it's a clean piece of plastic, but it's got the label on it. I was told at one time that these kind of things would be put in the dump, the landfill. So the whole point of us doing this recycling is to keep it out of the landfill. So I think I would like for this city to do a very large scale study this month here, looking at what our options are, etc. I say that because up until now, up until last year, the recycling, you could get lots of money for newsprint and stuff like that. That's just bottom out, and we can see we're probably going into a recession for a couple of years. So it's going to be a losing operation, but still we want to be able to get the things out of the way. And just the two or three containers at the grocery stores isn't going to do it. You sort of need like 4 or 5 containers, so you can already separate it, and it's already got to be clean and all the rest of that. So it's going to take some doing, and I hope you guys are pursuing it. I have a further question that we were told at the last question I asked that the funding for the mayor's salary ended on December 31st. So I would like to, if he would upgrade us on that. Is he getting a salary from Legacy? And if so, when was the meeting that did this? Thank you.
Thank you. The planning for major projects has sunsetted, and there's a committee that will be coming forward with remuneration for councillors sometime during the budget time. So that will be at that time. So currently, everything's sunsetted to its original prices.
But does that mean that you're not being paid at that salary right at the moment?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
On the recycling aspect of it, Councillor Neese and I were at a RD, and we had a discussion, and most of the commodity levels at the recycling are down right now. I don't know if it's because people aren't recycling or what, but the city is looking at curbside recycling and other ways of recycling. It's just one of the many aspects of the city that we're looking at right now, and of course we're looking to get a grant for a new truck and things like that. So it's not something we're ignoring. It's something we're looking at, and we're also looking at other aspects of recycling from you know, one-use plastic, straws, everything else. There's a whole spectrum out there of how we can stop stuff going in the recycle, but most of it starts right in the home with people recycling themselves. If we can educate people to recycle, and then it'll help big times. But it starts at home with people recycling. And, you know, I was taught to recycle by my kids. They've all moved out, and I'm still recycling. But it's just one of those things that we have to do at home ourselves. We can't expect the community and the government to do it for us. It's something we can actually do and have a big impact on our environment and society.
Any other members of the public who'd like to come speak to council? Welcome.
Dave McKeever. I'm the president of Prince Rupert and District Chamber of Commerce. I would just like to commend council and city staff for doing such a wonderful job on this water issue and working so closely with Northern Health in solving this and getting it going. It's very clear to me that you're my friends and my neighbors, and you're looking after us just as well as you're looking after yourselves and your own family. So thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public who'd like to speak to council today? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Joe Lewis. I'm here to represent the Mr. Nice Guys Cannabis Corporation. I'd like to bring up the city's disposition on only recognizing recreational sales and not venturing into anything else or discussing anything else at this point. I wish to start, or our corporation wishes to start a licensed production facility. This business model employs, you know, a fair number of people with good-paying jobs, and as you may have read in the media, there's a huge shortage for cannabis in the public market. So the city, by not entertaining this or moving forward with it, it's costing anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a month in revenues, lost revenues in waiting. We have contacted the city about this, and you guys even went as far as to refund our deposit for our license. And so I wanted to bring it to your attention that, you know, maybe if possible, that we could look at this, because this is, aside from dispensaries, this creates an industry. This creates jobs. It employs electricians, plumbers, you know, it employs 50 to 100 people a year with decent paying jobs, full-time, you know, not seasonal jobs. It creates an industry. And Prince Rupert is a great place for it because we have a lot of water here, and there's not a lot of chance for new industries to develop. So there's, say, like a very large warehouse on Watson Island and a few other places in town that, you know, are prime locations for this sort of stuff. And other municipalities that have brought in this industry have done well. It's a $1 billion industry, and you guys are only entertaining, you know, not even 2% of it with the recreational sales. Like, there's, you know, the market, the amount of jobs for dispensaries in the town, you know, with the demographic, it's not going to create a lot of jobs or a huge industry. You're going to open a few shops and employ a few people. And which is another issue I'd like to bring up, is the type of licensing that you issue to people, or the companies and corporations. I'm a local person. I live here. I run a business here. My kids are born here. I talk about allowing companies and corporations that don't have a vested interest in our community to come here and exploit a market without letting locals explore that market or open up that market. You know, having giving a chance for locals to open a shop and establish a shop, it takes time. Where if you let
to us there, when we first looked at these rules for being in business in Prince Rupert, it wasn't a matter of not wanting to have the operations of growing it. It's just a matter of doing it in steps. You know, the federal rules, provincial rules, they all come into place, and it takes time. I mean, it's not an overnight thing, and I just, you know, we are working towards other parts of this too, and the first application that actually came forward for selling in the store is actually 3 local guys. So there may be out of town corporations that are applying, but there is also local people applying too. And you know, until people put those applications in and apply to the government, you know, I mean, that's like us saying that, you know, well, I'm not going to allow Canadian Tire here, or I'm not going to allow Walmart here. I mean, everyone has an equal opportunity to do business in Prince Rupert, and I think that that's fair for everyone. But I obviously would love to see locals in business too. And like I said, the first people that have applied for a license are local people.
Yeah, you may. Just come to the mic, though. Well, just so you're clear, we're not here to have a debate with you, but the reality is you don't apply to the city. You apply to the Liquor and Cannabis Control Branch. That is who you make your application to. They send us the applications. Right now, we literally just passed the retail laws just like last month. So as Councillor Niche was saying, we're not even in a position to entertain, and they're not even allowed in any of the zones right now, commercial growing. So that's just how it is. So why would we issue a license for something that's not prohibited in the community right now? Just wanting you to know that, that's all. We are governed by the provincial government. We are a child of the province. That's how the municipality is. We are under the community charter. That's who we answer to. We operate under the provincial government. That's how we make our framework for our rules. You're just going to have to be patient, sir. Sorry.
I'm being patient, but I was sent my deposit back, and I was told come to a meeting, and we're getting a public attention, so here I am. Please recognize the federal model, okay? I have contacted the province. They have nothing to do with the federal model. You know what I mean? Basically, you're saying you're allowing stoners to get high, but you won't allow medical patients to access medicine.
You didn't mention anything about medical, sir. Okay. Any other comments from the community? Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn and reconvene the regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of January 28th, 2019 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation of the minutes of the special council meeting of January 14th, 2019 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Renhowa, seconded by Councillor Ady. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of January 14th, 2019 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Comments?
Yeah, 11D should read Acting Mayor Wade Neese update from staff on McBride Street and Park about Park Avenue Highway light improvements, not Councillor Cunningham.
Okay. Friendly amendment from mover and seconder. Okay. Note, is that recorded for the minutes? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. First up, we have a report from our Director of Recreation and Community Services regarding recreation and culture, energy efficiency, and risk management upgrades. Welcome back.
Thank you. So there are several capital projects we're working on in the Rec Department and at the Leicester Centre of the Arts for 2019. These projects we've put together into a project we're calling the Recreation and Culture, Energy Efficiency and Risk Management Upgrade Project. It's come to our attention that there's a grant opportunity through the Investing in Canada's Infrastructure Program, through the Community Culture and Recreation Infrastructure Grant Program. And I'm recommending that Council approve a grant application to this program for $482,705 toward the Recreation and Culture Energy Efficiency and Risk Management Upgrades Project. And also that Council directs staff to include the city's portion of the grant of $175,560 in the city's 2019 budget. And to add to that, these capital projects have all been approved for 2019 and funding has already been allocated, so this would not be an increase in our capital budget.
Comments from Council? Councillor Renhowa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if we include in our budget our portion, so that will increase our tax, or how it will work?
So no, that would not, that would not be an increase in the capital budget. I've included the recommendation that Council directs staff to include this portion in the budget because I need to have that in the resolution for the grant application. But this would not be an increase in what's already been allocated.
We've already resoluted that earlier in 2018. Other comments? Sounds like a great project. Thank you very much for your due diligence. Hearing no other comments, I would entertain a motion for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Any further comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Next, we have a report from our Manager of Communications regarding UBCM Emergency Operations Center capacity funding.
All right. So actually, since writing this report, we've actually come across one more project that could be potentially funded with this capacity funding option through UBCM. So we are looking for to apply for grant funding through UBCM Emergency Operations Center capacity funding to purchase identification vests for our emergency operations team, as well as some new radios for emergency staff. And also it's come to our attention in the last week that we could also use a portion of the grant funds towards an engineering cost estimate to purchase an emergency generator for the Public Works Department. So we're just looking at $25,000, maxing out the possible allotment for that grant funding and making that application, which funds up to 100%. So it's no cost implications to the city other than step time.
Any questions from Council? Okay, moved by Councillor, recommendation moved by Councillor Renhowa, seconded by Councillor 80. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have 3 reports from our corporate administrator regarding service agreements. We'll start with the SPCA.
Seeing as the corporate administrator is not here, I will speak to all 3 of these reports.
Do you want to speak to them all together?
I'll speak to them all at the same time. So I'll start first with the SPCA. This particular service agreement, we've been involved with the SPCA for the last couple of years. The service agreement provides some certainty for the SPCA, given they provide some duties on behalf of the city. The price is the same, so it's $25,000 a year, plus just it's tied to CPI of the city of Vancouver. Over the last few years, it's only been about 1.2% is the CPI there. So the maximum increase over year 3 potentially could be about just $600 over the 3-year term. But $25,000 a year, which we've already been allocating to the SPCA anyway, so there's no implications to the city's budget other than it would be a continuation of something that we're already servicing. That would be for a 3-year term. The next item on the agenda is the Racket Club, the center itself. The Racket Club operates the building that the city owns, and they lease it from the city. It is the same lease price that we're proposing for the next 3 years, which is $1 a year. You can see that the resolution there also identifies that we need to place an ad in the paper. And also the next item on the agenda is the lease of the Prince Rupert Curling Club. It has expired as well. This particular lease would be for 5 years, and it is also for $1 a year as well. It is also to be placed in the local newspaper. So all 3 actually need to be placed in the local newspaper. That would be at our cost. This is something that we do every time the terms expire. And so the lease cost is the advertising cost is approximately $400, and any of the legal fees that we might need to incur would approximate about $1,000. So.
Thank you. We used to do this on an annual basis through the Community Enhancement Grant, but about 3 years ago we changed the model to give some certainty to these organizations, correct?
That was with the SPCA only.
And then
the
that
other 2 are
moved into
leases.
Some of the other ones?
Yeah.
Right. So this is just to give these organizations some certainty in the long term that they don't have to keep coming every year, that we'll have 3-year to 5-year agreements with certain organizations. So that's why this has come out. Is maybe as a council we can discuss all 3 and then we'll do one resolution at a time. Is there any comments? Councillor Cunningham?
On the SPCA, that's just a boarding contract? They just board impounded pets or animals or dogs,
I
cats?
believe that's the case, yeah.
Yes.
At one time, were they contracted to be our dog catcher at one time?
My memory doesn't go back far enough for that one, so.
My memory's getting older. But yeah, no, it's just something I think if in the future maybe we should look at from a bylaw point of view, free up our bylaw officers for other infractions, because they seem to get a lot of dog calls lately. But just that on that one, I'm just curious.
Sure. Other comments from council?
Just a question. We're leasing to both of the other 2 organizations for $1 a year. Does the city have other buildings that they lease to other organizations under different terms?
There's not too many commercial enterprises. We do. However, there's one in particular that we also do for $1 a year, and that's the Lester Center as well. So the Prince Rupert Performing Arts Center Society, they lease the Lester Center itself from us for $1 a year as well.
Other comments? So we'll start with the first resolution, and you have to move the first recommendation. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor 80. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Second recommendation. Any movers and seconders? Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Skelton Morvan. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And the third agreement, moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, next we have correspondence for action. Mr. Sean Carlson, the president of the Can Trails, a letter of support for the Can Trails to pursue design funding for McClymont Park Trail. Is he scheduled to come speak to us, or is it just a letter? Okay, so just a letter of support then? Okay, so you want to make a motion then?
I'll make a motion that we send a letter of support, because this is just going to tie in with the rest of the trail system that they're eventually hoping to upgrade, so I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor 80. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Reports, comments, and questions from council. Councillor Skelton Morvan.
I just want to take the time here to thank all of our speakers this evening. It's very important that we take the time to listen and be able to learn and collaborate from those in the public. And I know, especially during this boil water notice, it's been testing times for our community, so it's great to see such civic passion, especially from folks like Tom Curtis and members of the community for clean water. So I just want to take the time to thank our speakers today and Tom Curtis as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn to reconvene our recessed in-camera meeting. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Meeting's adjourned.